The Pemberton family Christmas had all the usual elements. A tree that cost more than most people's monthly rent, catered food from the most expensive restaurant in Georgetown, and my family's certainty that they knew what was best for everyone, especially me. I sat in the corner of the living room, wearing my customary simple sweater and jeans, watching my older sister Natalie show off her new Mercedes to our parents while my brother-in-law Richard discussed his latest tech startup acquisition. At 36, I'd learned to occupy space quietly at these gatherings, present but unremarkable. "Alexis," my mother Barbara called out, not bothering to come closer, just projecting her voice across the room like she was summoning a servant. "More wine. The Bordeaux, not that cheap Californian nonsense your father insists on buying." "Of course, Mom," I said, standing and moving toward the kitchen. "Still playing the dutiful daughter," Natalie murmured as I passed. "Some things never change." In the kitchen, I poured Mom's wine with steady hands. Through the window, I could see my father's Bentley in the driveway, parked next to Natalie's new Mercedes and Richard's Porsche. My 10-year-old Honda Civic was relegated to the street. "Alexis." Dad's voice boomed from the living room. "Come in here. We have news." I returned with the wine, handing it to Mom before taking my seat again. Dad, Thomas Pemberton III, stood by the fireplace like he was about to deliver a boardroom presentation. At 67, he still ran Pemberton Capital Management with an iron fist, managing $800 million in client assets and never letting anyone forget it. "Your mother and I have made an executive decision regarding your property situation," he announced. Something cold settled in my stomach. "My property situation?" "That house you bought in Spring Valley," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "The one you never use. It's been sitting empty for 3 years, Alexis. Just sitting there, accumulating dust and wasting equity." "It's not empty," I said quietly. "I use it when I'm in town." "You're never in town," Natalie interjected. "You're always traveling for work," she made air quotes, "doing whatever it is you do. That house sits vacant 340 days a year. It's wasteful." "We sold it," Dad announced proudly. "Got an excellent price too. $2.8 million. Well above market value. The buyer wanted a quick close, so we handled everything." The room tilted slightly. "You sold my house." "Don't be dramatic," Mom said. "It was the sensible thing to do. The property was in your name, yes, but you'd added us as co-owners when you bought it. Remember? You said you wanted our financial expertise, in case anything happened to you." I did remember. 4 years ago, when I'd bought the property, I'd been new to my position and uncertain about the legal complexities. I'd asked my parents for help with the paperwork, and they'd suggested adding themselves as co-owners for estate planning purposes. "You sold my house without asking me," I said, keeping my voice level. "We're asking you to be grateful," Dad corrected. "We negotiated an excellent deal. After closing costs and our finder's fee, 20%, which is standard, you'll net about $2.1 million. We'll have a check for you by New Year's." "Finder's fee," I repeated. "We did all the work," Mom explained as if speaking to a child. "Found the buyer, negotiated the terms, handled the closing. That's worth compensation, Alexis. In the real world, people get paid for their expertise." Richard leaned forward, his expression dripping with condescension. "Honestly, Alexis, you should be thanking them. That property was just sitting there while you gallivant around doing your little consulting work or whatever it is. Your parents turned a stagnant asset into liquid capital." "Why consulting work?" I said softly. "Whatever it is," Natalie said with a shrug. "You've never really explained what you do, just that you work with international organizations and travel frequently. It all sounds very vague and, frankly, not particularly lucrative if you're still driving a 2015 Honda." "The house was important to me," I said. "Then you should have used it," Dad said firmly. "Real estate is an investment, not a sentimental indulgence. We maximized your return." "You're welcome." I took a sip of my coffee, regular grocery store coffee, not the expensive imported beans my parents favored, and set the cup down carefully. "When did you close?" I asked. "Yesterday," Mom said brightly. "Christmas Eve. The buyer wanted to close before the end of the year for tax purposes. Very motivated. Paid cash." "Who was the buyer?" "Some investment group," Dad said, pulling out his phone to check. "Meridian Property Holdings, LLC. They're flipping luxury properties in Spring Valley. Probably going to gut renovate and resell for $4 million. Smart investors. You sold to a property flipper, I said quietly. We sold to the highest bidder, Dad corrected. That's how capitalism works, Alexis. Perhaps if you'd spent less time on your mysterious consulting work and more time building actual wealth, you'd understand these concepts. Natalie stood stretching like a cat. Anyway, crisis averted. That house was becoming an embarrassment. People kept asking why you had a $2.8 million property sitting empty. Made the whole family look strange. Can't have that, I murmured. No, we can't, Mom agreed, missing my sarcasm entirely. The Pembertons have a reputation to maintain. Your father sits on 3 corporate boards. I chair the hospital auxiliary. Natalie's on the museum council. We can't have people thinking we have a daughter who doesn't understand property management. Of course not, I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen and felt my pulse quicken. Urgent. Security breach at Spring Valley residence. Unauthorized sale detected. Diplomatic security responding. Call immediately. Director Morrison. Excuse me, I said, standing. I need to take this call. Now. Mom looked irritated. Alexis, we're in the middle of Christmas. Whatever work emergency you think you have can wait. It can't, I said simply and walked out of the room. In the quiet of the guest bathroom, I called Director Morrison. Alexis, he answered immediately. We have a situation. Your parents sold the Spring Valley property to Meridian Property Holdings. The transaction was flagged in our monitoring system this morning. I just found out, I said quietly. They told me at Christmas dinner. Announced it like good news. Do they know what that property is? Morrison asked carefully. No, I said. They think it's my personal residence that I never use. They don't know it's designated diplomatic property. Jesus, Morrison breathed. Alexis, that property is registered with the State Department as a secured diplomatic residence. It's part of your security protocol as Deputy Chief of Mission. The designation is in the property records. Anyone doing proper due diligence would have seen it. Meridian Property Holdings probably didn't look that deep, I said. And my parents definitely didn't. They saw an empty house and an opportunity to maximize returns. The Diplomatic Security Service is already responding, Morrison said. They're treating this as a potential security breach. The sale of diplomatic property without State Department authorization is a serious violation. What happens now? The sale is void, Morrison said firmly. Diplomatic property can't be sold without federal clearance. The State Department will notify all parties, reverse the transaction and investigate how this happened. Alexis, there could be criminal charges. Unauthorized sale of diplomatic property, fraud, potentially violations of the Foreign Missions Act. Criminal charges, I repeated quietly. Your parents sold federal property, Morrison said. Even if they didn't know that's what it was, ignorance isn't a defense. They accessed property records, executed a sale and took money. 20% of $2.8 million is $560,000. That's more than $500,000 obtained through the sale of diplomatic property. When will diplomatic security arrive? They're already en route to your parents' address, Morrison said. 15 minutes. I'm sorry, Alexis. I know this is your family, but this is a federal matter now. I understand, I said. Thank you for the heads up. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. 4 years as Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Vienna. 4 years of quiet, careful work managing diplomatic relations, coordinating with foreign governments, overseeing security protocols. 4 years of maintaining a low profile in Washington, D.C. when I was in town, staying in my designated diplomatic residence in Spring Valley, the one my family thought was just an empty house I never used. The residence was specifically chosen for its security features, its distance from main roads, its defensible position. It was registered with the State Department. It was protected by diplomatic status. It was, legally speaking, an extension of U.S. federal property. And my parents had just sold it to a property flipper for cash. I returned to the living room. Dad was showing Richard something on his phone, probably the closing documents. Mom was telling Natalie about the excellent negotiating she'd done. No one looked up when I entered. Everything okay? Natalie asked absently. Not really, I said, sitting down. That call was from the State Department. About the house. The State Department? Dad looked up, frowning. Why would State be calling about a private real estate transaction? Because it's not private real estate, I said calmly. It's diplomatic property. Registered with the federal government. Part of my security protocol. The room went silent. What are you talking about? Mom asked slowly. I don't work in consulting, I explained. I'm the deputy chief of mission at the U.S. Embassy in Vienna. I'm the second highest-ranking American diplomat in Austria. The Spring Valley property isn't my personal residence. It's my designated diplomatic housing for when I'm in Washington. It's registered with the State Department as protected diplomatic property. That's absurd, Dad said, but his voice had lost confidence. You would have told us if you worked for the State Department. I've been telling you for 4 years, I said quietly. Every time you asked what I do, I said I work with international organizations on diplomatic relations. You assumed I meant consulting. I corrected you multiple times. You didn't listen. But, diplomatic property? Mom's face had gone pale. That means you just sold federal property without authorization, I said. The Diplomatic Security Service is treating this as a security breach. They're investigating how diplomatic property ended up being sold to a private buyer. We didn't know. Natalie protested. How could we know? The designation is in the property records, I said. Anyone doing proper due diligence would have seen it. There's a notation that the property is registered with the State Department under diplomatic protocols. You didn't check because you assumed you knew better than me what the property was. Dad's phone rang. He answered it, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion to fear as he listened. Yes, this is Thomas Pemberton, he said. What? Oh, yes, I understand. When? He paused. They're already here? The doorbell rang. Through the front window I could see 3 black SUVs parked in the driveway. Men and women in dark suits with badges visible were approaching the door. Dad ended his call and looked at me, his face ashen. That was my lawyer. The State Department's Diplomatic Security Service is here. They want to talk to us about the property sale. I know, I said. I told you they were coming. Mom stood abruptly. This is a mistake. We'll explain that we didn't know. They'll understand. They'll understand that you sold diplomatic property without authorization, I said. Whether you knew or not doesn't change what you did. The doorbell rang again, more insistently. Richard moved toward the door, his usual swagger completely gone. He opened it to reveal 5 people in suits, badges prominently displayed. Thomas and Barbara Pemberton? The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, addressed my parents. I'm Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, Diplomatic Security Service. We need to discuss the unauthorized sale of property located at 4750 Springland Lane. There must be some mistake, Dad started. There's no mistake, sir, Agent Walsh said firmly. That property is registered as a diplomatic residence under State Department protocols. It cannot be sold, transferred, or altered without federal authorization. You executed a sale yesterday without proper clearance. We need to speak with you about how that happened. We didn't know it was diplomatic property, Mom said desperately. Our daughter never told us. Your daughter is Deputy Chief of Mission Alexis Pemberton, Agent Walsh said, consulting her tablet. She's held that position for 4 years. The property was purchased in her name and immediately registered with state as her secured diplomatic residence in the continental United States. The registration is clearly noted in the property records. We didn't see that, Dad protested. You didn't look, Agent Walsh corrected. Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, we need you to come with us for questioning. We also need to speak with the buyer and their representatives. This is a federal investigation into the unauthorized sale of diplomatic property. Federal investigation? Natalie looked like she might faint. Ma'am, are you involved in this transaction? Agent Walsh turned to her. No, I'm just the sister. Then you're free to go. Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, if you'll come with us. Wait, Dad said. We need to call our lawyer. We have rights. You absolutely have rights, sir, Agent Walsh said. You have the right to legal representation. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest exercising the latter until you've secured the former. This is a serious matter, Mr. Pemberton. The sale of diplomatic property without authorization violates multiple federal statutes. We'll return the money, Mom said quickly. Just give us the buyer's information and we'll reverse the whole thing. It's not that simple, ma'am, another agent said. The property is under federal protection. The sale is automatically void, but the attempt to sell it, the execution of the transaction, and the receipt of funds all constitute separate violations. Violations of what? Dad demanded. The Foreign Missions Act for one, Agent Walsh said. Potentially fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud and misrepresentation of property status. We'll know more after our investigation. Richard had gone very quiet in the corner. I advised them on the sale, he said suddenly. I helped structure the LLC transaction. I didn't know about the diplomatic status either. Then we'll need to speak with you as well, Mr. Richard Chin. I'm married to their daughter Natalie. Mr. Chin, we'll need a statement from you about your involvement in the transaction. Agent Walsh turned to me. Deputy Chief Pemberton will need a statement from you as well. About the property, your position, and why your family had access to diplomatic property. They were listed as co-owners, I said. I added them when I first purchased the property because I was new to the diplomatic service and uncertain about the legalities. It was poor judgment on my part. We'll need that in writing, Agent Walsh said. But for now, Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, please come with us. Alexis, Mom turned to me, tears in her eyes. Fix this. You work for the government. Tell them this was a misunderstanding. I can't fix this, Mom, I said quietly. You sold federal property. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. We're your parents. Dad's voice rose. You owe us. I owe you nothing, I said, my voice still calm. You've spent 4 years dismissing my career, mocking my choices, assuming you knew better than me about my own life. You sold my home without asking because you thought I was too incompetent to manage my own property. Now you're facing consequences and you want me to save you from them. We didn't know, Mom repeated desperately. You didn't ask, I corrected. You never asked what I actually do. You never asked why I needed that specific property. You never asked why it was empty most of the year. You assumed and you acted on those assumptions, and now you're learning that assumptions have consequences. Agent Walsh gestured toward the door. Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, let's go. As they were being escorted out, Natalie turned to me. You're really just going to let them take our parents? They're not being arrested, I said. They're being questioned. There's a difference. But you could stop this. You're some big diplomatic official. Tell them it's fine that Mom and Dad made a mistake. It's not fine, I said. And I can't tell federal agents to ignore a violation of diplomatic security protocols. That's not how any of this works. So you're choosing your job over your family, Natalie said, her voice sharp with accusation. I'm choosing reality over your fantasy, I said. You've all spent years treating me like I'm the incompetent one, the one who doesn't understand how the real world works. Now the real world is showing you that I understand it better than you do. Richard was on his phone, presumably calling his lawyer. Natalie was crying. And I was sitting in the wreckage of Christmas dinner, watching my parents' Bentley follow 3 federal SUVs down the driveway. My phone buzzed. A text from Director Morrison. Situation contained. Your parents are being questioned but not arrested yet. Depends on what the investigation reveals. How are you holding up? I typed back. I'm fine. Thank you for the professional handling. Another text, this one from Agent Walsh. Need your statement tomorrow morning. State Department Headquarters, 9 a.m. Bring all documentation related to the property purchase and co-ownership arrangement. I'll be there, I responded. Natalie approached me, her tears genuine but her approach calculating. Alexis, please. For our parents. They made a mistake. Can't you do something? What would you like me to do? I asked. Lie to federal investigators? Claim this wasn't a violation? Pretend that selling diplomatic property is no big deal. I'd like you to remember that they're family, Natalie said. I'd like you to remember that for 4 years, you've treated me like I'm stupid, I said. Like my career is a joke. Like my choices are wrong. Like I need you to manage my life because I'm too incompetent to do it myself. We never said that, Natalie protested. You said it constantly, I corrected. Every time you mocked my Honda. Every time you asked what I really do for work. Every time you dismissed my travel as gallivanting around. Every time you treated my absence as neglect instead of recognizing it as the demands of a serious career. You never corrected us, she said weakly. I corrected you dozens of times, I said. You didn't listen. You'd already decided who I was, so you filtered everything I said through that belief. I told you I was Deputy Chief of Mission. You heard works in consulting. I told you the property was for work. You heard doesn't use it. I told you my travel was essential. You heard gallivanting. Richard ended his call and approached cautiously. My lawyer says this is serious. That your parents could face federal charges. Fraud, violations of the Foreign Missions Act. He says they could go to prison. They could, I agreed. Depends on what the investigation reveals about their intent and knowledge. You have to help them, he pressed. Why? I asked simply. Because they're family. Family doesn't sell your home without asking, I said. Family doesn't take a $560,000 finder's fee from your property. Family doesn't dismiss your career and mock your choices and treat you like you're incompetent. They did all of those things. Now they're facing consequences. So you're going to let them go to prison? Natalie asked, horrified. I'm going to tell the truth to federal investigators, I said. What happens after that is out of my control. If they're charged, they'll have lawyers. If they're convicted, they'll have appeals. But I'm not going to lie or manipulate or abuse my position to protect them from the consequences of their own actions. That's cold, Richard said. That's professional, I corrected. I'm a diplomatic official. I'm held to a higher standard. I can't use my position to interfere with federal investigations, and I wouldn't even if I could. They broke the law. That matters more than family loyalty. My phone rang. Director Morrison again. Alexis, we need you back in Vienna immediately. The situation here is escalating and we need the Deputy Chief of Mission in country. Can you be on a plane tonight? Yes, I said. I'll head to the airport now. Good. I'm sorry about your family situation. It is what it is, I said. They made their choices. I ended the call and stood. I have to go. I'm needed in Vienna. Now. Natalie looked incredulous. Alexis, Mom and Dad are being interrogated by federal agents and you're just leaving? I have a job, I said simply. A job that matters. A job that takes precedence over family drama that my parents created themselves. You're unbelievable, she said. No, I corrected. I'm finally done letting you all treat me like I'm the problem. You sold my house. You took more than $500,000. You violated federal law. Those are your problems, not mine. I gathered my coat and bag. What should we tell Mom and Dad? Richard asked. Tell them I hope they've learned to ask questions before making assumptions, I said. Tell them that dismissing someone doesn't make them less competent. It just makes you blind. Tell them that I spent 4 years trying to help them understand my life, and they spent 4 years refusing to listen. You're really just leaving, Natalie said, and it wasn't a question. I really am, I confirmed. I have diplomatic cables to review, meetings with Austrian officials, and a security briefing scheduled for tomorrow afternoon Vienna time. Your drama isn't more important than my actual responsibilities. I walked to the door, then paused and turned back. One more thing, I said. The property will be returned to my sole ownership once this investigation concludes. When it is, I'll be removing you all as co-owners, emergency contacts, and from any documentation related to my life. You've proven you can't be trusted with access to my assets or information about my career. Alexis, Natalie started. For years, I interrupted. 4 years of dismissal, condescension, and assumptions. You earned this distance. Live with it. I left them standing in the wreckage of Christmas, walked to my modest Honda Civic, and drove toward Dulles International Airport. My phone buzzed continuously during the drive. Texts from Natalie, calls from Richard, voicemails from Dad's lawyer asking me to cooperate with the family. I ignored them all. At the airport, I went through the diplomatic security lane. A perk of my position that would have impressed my family if they'd ever bothered to learn what my position actually was. In the international terminal, I called Agent Walsh. Deputy Chief Pemberton, she answered. Heading back to Vienna? Yes. Director Morrison needs me there. But I'll be available via secure channels for statements or testimony. Understood. For what it's worth, your parents are claiming they had no idea about the diplomatic status. They seem genuinely shocked. They are, I said. Genuinely shocked that I'm not the incompetent they believed me to be. Genuinely shocked that their assumptions were wrong. Genuinely shocked that actions have consequences. Harsh assessment, Walsh observed. Accurate assessment, I corrected. They spent 4 years dismissing my career. Now that career is the reason they're facing federal charges. The irony isn't lost on me. Will you advocate for leniency? Walsh asked. No, I said simply. I'll tell the truth. What prosecutors do with that truth is their decision. Fair enough. Safe travels, Deputy Chief. I boarded my flight. Business class, another perk my family had never known about, and settled in for the long flight to Vienna. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I drafted my official statement for the State Department investigation. Factual, comprehensive, and completely unsentimental. 3 weeks later, I received an update from Agent Walsh via encrypted email. The investigation had concluded. My parents had been charged with unauthorized sale of federal property and fraud. Meridian Property Holdings had been charged with attempting to purchase protected diplomatic property. The sale had been fully reversed, the property returned to my sole ownership, and my parents had been ordered to return the $560,000 finder's fee plus penalties. As part of a plea agreement, they'd avoided prison time but received 2 years of probation, substantial fines, and a permanent flag on their professional licenses. Dad's position on 3 corporate boards was now in jeopardy. Boards didn't like members with federal convictions. Mom had to step down from the hospital auxiliary chairmanship. Natalie had sent me 47 text messages and 12 emails, all variations on the theme of, "How could you do this to our family?" I'd responded to none of them. 6 months later, I received a letter forwarded through State Department channels. My parents' handwriting on expensive stationery, somehow still trying to maintain dignity. Alexis, we've completed our probation requirements and satisfied all financial penalties from the diplomatic property situation. Our lawyer has advised us that the case is closed and we should attempt to repair our family relationships. We want you to know that we're sorry for not understanding your career. We should have listened when you tried to explain your position. We should have asked questions instead of making assumptions. We hope you can forgive us and that we can rebuild our relationship. We miss you and we're proud of your accomplishments, even though we failed to show that pride when it mattered. With love and regret, Mom and Dad. I read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. 2 weeks later, Natalie called via the embassy switchboard. Alexis, please, she said when I finally accepted the call. They're genuinely sorry. They've lost so much. Dad had to resign from 2 boards, Mom lost all her social positions. They've paid every fine. They've done everything the court required. Can't you at least talk to them? Why? I asked. Because they're your parents. They were my parents when they sold my house without permission, I said. They were my parents when they took $560,000 from me. They were my parents when they spent 4 years treating me like I was incompetent. Being parents didn't stop them from any of that. They didn't know. They didn't ask, I interrupted. That's different. They could have asked what I do. They could have asked why the property mattered. They could have asked before selling. They chose not to ask because they'd already decided they knew better than me. So you're never going to forgive them? Natalie asked. I didn't say never, I said. I said not now. Maybe not for years. They need to understand that actions have consequences, that dismissing someone has costs, that assumptions can destroy relationships. When they truly understand that, not just say the words but actually internalize the lesson, maybe we can talk. That's not fair, Natalie protested. No, I agreed. What's not fair is spending 4 years being treated like a failure by people who should have respected me. What's not fair is having my home sold without my consent. What's not fair is being expected to forgive instantly because it's Christmas or because they've completed their legal obligations. What do you want from them? Natalie asked, exasperated. Nothing, I said simply. I want nothing from them. I have a career I love, colleagues who respect me, work that matters. I don't need their approval or their understanding. If they want a relationship with me, they need to earn it. And earning it starts with accepting that I don't owe them forgiveness just because they're finally ready to give it. I ended the call and returned to my work. A complex negotiation with Austrian officials about trade policy, the kind of work that required diplomatic expertise, cultural understanding, and strategic thinking. The kind of work I'd been doing for 4 years while my family thought I was gallivanting around, doing consulting. The kind of work that mattered more than their belated apologies. 3 years later, I was promoted to ambassador. My first posting, Switzerland. The announcement made international news. Youngest female ambassador in U.S. history, extensive diplomatic experience, fluent in 4 languages. My parents sent flowers and a card. I acknowledged receipt through my assistant. 5 years after the Spring Valley incident, I was home in D.C. for a conference. On a whim, I drove past my parents' house in Georgetown. Dad answered the door. He looked older, diminished. The Bentley was gone, replaced by a modest Lexus. The house looked the same but somehow smaller. "Alexis," he said, and his voice cracked. "You came." "I was in the neighborhood," I said. "Thought I'd stop by." "Please come in." Mom was in the living room. She stood when she saw me, her hands twisting together nervously. "Alexis. It's so good to see you. You look well," I said neutrally. "We've been following your career," Dad said. "Ambassador to Switzerland. We saw the news. We're very proud." "Thank you," I said. "We're sorry," Mom said, the words rushing out. "Not just sorry we got caught or sorry we faced consequences. We're sorry we didn't see you. We're sorry we dismissed your work and your choices and your entire career. We're sorry we sold your house. We're sorry we made assumptions instead of asking questions. We lost a lot because of what we did," Dad added. "Money, status, respect. But we lost you, and that's the loss that actually matters. We understand that now. We understand what we threw away." I looked at them, my parents, humbled and genuine, finally seeing me. "I appreciate the apology," I said. "And I believe you mean it. But I'm not ready to rebuild what we had." "We understand," Mom said quickly. We hope someday you might be." "Maybe," I said. "But that day isn't today. Today I'm here to tell you that I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve not to carry anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means I'm letting go of the hurt so I can move forward." "That's fair," Dad said quietly. "I have a conference to get back to," I said, moving toward the door. "But I wanted you to know I received your letters and your messages. I wanted you to know I'm doing well. And I wanted you to know that I've built a life that matters, with or without your recognition." "We see that now," Mom said. "We see you now. Too late, but we see you." I nodded and left. As I drove away, my phone rang. "Director Morrison." "Alexis, how did it go?" "As well as it could," I said. "They apologized." I accepted. I left. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. "They're my past. My work is my present and future. I'm more than okay." "Good," Morrison said. "Because I have news. The secretary is recommending you for the deputy secretary position. If you're interested, the vetting process starts next month." Deputy Secretary of State. One of the highest diplomatic positions in the U.S. government. "I'm interested," I said. "Good. You've earned it, Alexis. Your work in Vienna, your handling of the Austrian trade negotiations, your leadership during the refugee crisis. You're exactly what state needs." I pulled onto the highway, leaving Georgetown and my family behind. In my rearview mirror, I could see the neighborhood shrinking. The houses, the status, the world that had once made me feel small. Ahead of me was Washington, the State Department, and a career that had proven my family wrong about everything. They'd thought I was incompetent. They'd thought I was unsuccessful. They'd thought I didn't understand the real world. And they'd learned, through federal charges and diplomatic security investigations, that they were the ones who didn't understand. I'd built a career saving them from their own assumptions. And I'd built a life without needing their approval. That, I thought as the highway stretched ahead, was its own kind of success. The kind that mattered. The kind that lasted. The kind they'd never understood until it was too late to be part of it. And I was fine with that. More than fine. I was free.